Yo, what's up, brother?
Hey, happy 1 year, man.
Happy 1 year, right? We got some exciting stuff coming up in year 2. We're really happy to announce that that we are just signed an ambassadorship program with Schedulicity. Schedulicity is a scheduling app, and they've been kind enough to help us out this next year.
Yeah, we met them in LA when we did the Salon Digital Summit, and they really believed in what we were doing and how we were doing it, and so they wanted to know how they can partner up with us to even reach more listeners and give what we give.
That's right. So with our partnership with Schedulicity, we will be able to reach more hairdressers, and we'll be able to bring a lot more content and get to a lot more hair shows. So hopefully we can see you guys out there in the hair shows when we're there visiting.
Yeah, and they're going to give us some business tips throughout the podcast as well. And I'm so excited that, we're partnering up with people that believe in the same things we believe in.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty exciting. So anyway, Schedulicity, once again, big shout out to you. And
thank you for joining
your day off. Silly. Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey, and of course I'm sitting with my best bud, Tony. What's up, Tony?
Almost sitting, homie. You know what I mean? Yeah, unfortunately, we're stuck in a snowstorm, so this is the first time we're doing a podcast at different locations. But, man, I'm so excited with what's going on with this next interview that we're doing. He's doing some amazing things for the world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I just can't wait to get into his story and what triggered everything that's happening in his life.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it too. I mean, it's kind of a first for us, I think. I mean, we've had lots and lots of people that have inspired our industry, and we've had a few that have inspired outside of our industry. But I'm not sure on a human level, if there's anybody in our industry that's doing more than our guest today.
It's funny because we've mentioned him in previous podcasts. I'm sure he doesn't know that, but you know what I mean? We've mentioned him and we mentioned him to other people that we interviewed. But yeah, we for some reason, since we heard his name, something has drawn us to him and to his charity and to everything he's doing. And I'm just, sucked in. So,
well, Tom, why don't you go ahead and introduce everybody to who our guest is and what he's up to a little bit, and then we'll jump in.
Well, first of all, he is a founder of the James Allen Salon in Seattle, Washington. He founded Justice and Soul, which is a nonprofit charity that takes these sex trafficked or abused teens off the street and gives them an opportunity to learn our industry, our great industry. He founded, and he's the director of Kate Corpy Salon and Academy in Cambodia. There's so much there that we need to dive into, but
got to dive in.
Yeah. So you want to tell him who he is?
Let's do it now, man. So, hey, all the way from Cambodia, we have the great Matthew Fairfax. Mr. Matthew Fairfax, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And I want to just say that it is very early over here, even though you're getting ready to quit for the day.
Yeah, I smell dinner.
And I'm smelling coffee right now. So
right. Yeah, the Cambodia time change is no joke.
No, it is not.
So you're 12 hours ahead?
12 hours ahead of you guys, so I know the future. If you have any questions, just let me know.
What's the lottery number?
I'll call you Super Bowl Monday.
Exactly. But I'm actually 15 hours ahead of my home state, Seattle, Washington. So it's always tricky when I have meetings planning, how far it went. Yeah, so it's great.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Matthew, where are you from?
I'm originally from Spokane, Washington, but I graduated and probably within 2 months, I hightailed it out of there and spent the majority of my life in Seattle. So Seattle wins. It's my hometown.
Oh, excellent. Is that where you went to hair school, or is that where you discovered?
This is the funny thing. So I don't do hair. I've never done hair. I know everybody's like, you're a hairstylist. No, actually. So the salon that I have in Seattle, that I own in Seattle, just to kind of correct what you said earlier, I actually didn't found that. I bought it. So my partner and I, at the time, he was managing it, and the founders, Kurt Kilman, and he was ready to move on, and we were ready to get into it. And so in 1999, we bought the salon, and then about 7 years later, I bought my partner out, and we went separate ways. And so I've now owned it since 2007.
That's right. I'm used to being corrected. My wife corrects me all the time.
So Matthew, how'd you find the industry?
Well, interestingly enough, I worked for a clothing manufacturer, Genera Sportswear, and so that was my first taste of fashion in this industry and how fast changing and cool it was. And then but my background was in human resources. I was working in human resources at Genera, and so I kind of spent, 25 years doing HR stuff. But in the process, because of my partner, I started going to hair shows with him. And I remember sitting at a hair show that Sebastian did for the launch of Exta. And Robert Labetta was doing this amazing, unbelievable show we did in a warehouse, and there was a tank of water, and he was dropping people in the water, and then he's razor cutting their hair, and it was there are no rules. The whole thing was there are no rules, break the rules or whatever. And I'm standing there, and I remember in that moment saying, I am going to get into this industry. I don't know how, but I'm going to be part of it. And a few years later, we had the opportunity to buy the salon. I did some training. Actually, I started with development and doing work with salon services, and started training, doing communication styles, team building, and organizational development stuff. And then through that, decided to buy the salon, bought the salon, never looked back. So
that's amazing. You know, what's interesting is actually Tony and I, we went to that same tour, that same Exta tour. We did it in Philadelphia with Robert Labetta, and it was, and as you pointed out, it was absolutely mind blowing. You know, and
yeah.
I can see how that energy could just enter your body and not let go, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then every hair show I went to afterwards I think sometimes I walked out more inspired than my stylist. Because, they'd be like, oh, that's all fun and games, but when you get into real life, you don't get to dunk them in a tank and razor the crap out of their hair. And I'm like, I don't care. I would do it. I would find a client that would be willing to do it. So yeah, it was pretty fun for me.
That's awesome.
So how did Justice and Soul come about then?
Well, that's the thing. So I left
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Before you tell us how that came about, tell the people what it is.
Yes. So Justice and Soul, back in 2012, that's when the foundation got started. I'll tell you how we did, but our whole focus is to introduce trafficked survivors, both boys and girls, as well as at-risk youth, into the cosmetology world. We equip them with vocational skills so that they can go out and earn a living and feel awesome about what they're doing. So, to tell you a little bit about how it started, I mean, I had very limited knowledge about trafficking issues, as I think a lot of people did at that. I mean, this was back, I was first introduced in 2008. 2008 was before Ashton Kutcher went off and was doing his thing, and people started making this, like, putting it on the, out there so we could see it and hear about it. And so it just didn't impact me. I didn't think about it. And so I was busy, and our salon is very philanthropic and does a lot of community work. And what happened is one of my clients came into the salon and said, you guys are always doing stuff and helping people. Have you ever thought about doing work in Cambodia? To one of my stylists. And my stylist then came to me and said, Carol would like to talk to you about Cambodia. She's wondering if we'd consider Cambodia to help. And I said, no, hell no. I'm like, I don't even know where Cambodia is. All I know is it's hot.
Right.
No, we have enough work to do here. No. So tell her thank you, but no. So Carol comes back, and as I've learned about Carol, she is very persistent, and she doesn't let go easily. And so she talked again to April, and then April came to me and said, you should at least go have coffee, because she's a client. I'm like, damn it. She threw down a client card. Now I got to go have coffee.
Right.
So I go, I have coffee with her. I tell people now coffee is dangerous because honestly, I've drank wine, I've drank beer, I've done a lot of meetings over liquids, but never have I made this kind of commitment. So I walked away after 2 hours and I thought, how can I not get involved? There's got to be something I can do, because when she started describing the conditions here, we're talking 8, 9, 10-year-old girls that are being put in, I mean, they're either being sold, duped, or stolen and stuck in brothels. And I realized at that time, it's like, I have a granddaughter. You know, this could be her. And it's just that it's like something clicked. And then what happens for me is I get a little, you know, it's like the Grinch whose heart grew 3 times and we don't know why.
Right.
What happens for me is I get, you know, it's like, no, no, no. And then I'm like, oh, I got to do something. And it just like clicks. And then my vision goes big. And I'm like, I can't just do a simple thing like, hey, let's do a fundraiser. It's like, no, hey, let's go over there and open up a salon. So I went back to my team and I said to my team, so I talked to her, I talked to a couple of the stylists, and then at our salon retreat, which was just a few weeks after, I brought it up to the team and I said, hey, here's what's going on, and Carol wants us to consider this, and what do you guys think? And they were like, yeah, we totally should check it out. Let's figure something out. And then Lauren, who was one of my stylists at the time, said, I already know about this. I'm sending money over there. If you do this, I want to go. She pulled out her gold collage that we had just finished. We hadn't even presented our collages yet. She pointed at the gold collage and she said, there's Cambodia on my gold collage.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, this is crazy. So that was October 2008 that we were doing this. And she pushed and cajoled and finally found a spot on my calendar where I could, because I was doing consulting as well as running the salon. And so it was like May. So May in 2009 was when we first made our first trip over here. So we left in early May. It was super hot over here in Cambodia, and I spent about 3 days in culture shock. It was like, what did I just do? But we met with so many people, and we had this very small picture and what we were going to do. And so we were telling people, we want to open up a hair salon, maybe 3 months, 4 months, teach them a few skills and send them out to their villages. And everybody was like, oh, good, okay. You know, people are kind. They want to be polite. They don't. But I had a few good friends. And one of them was my dear friend, Helen. And she sat down. She wasn't my friend then. I didn't know her. And we sat down and she said, we told her what we're going to do, 3 months, 4 months, send them back to the village. And she said, you know, that's a nice idea, but take your toys and go home. Wow. Maybe not quite that blunt, but pretty blunt.
Is Helen Cambodian?
No, Helen was from Bristol in England, but she had been here for like, I don't know, 15 years at the time. And she headed up the coalition of Chub Dai. And Chub Dai pulls together all these organizations that are here doing work in Cambodia, specifically focused on trafficking. So she said, take your toys and go home. It's not sustainable. She said, donors will get weary and they'll stop giving money and you'll spend all this time trying to get more money. She said, go home and put together a sustainable plan, something that will be self-sustaining, that can grow itself, and then come back. And I left there, and Lauren was like devastated. She's like, that was the worst meeting we've had. And what happens for me is I just get challenged. I'm like, oh, fuck that. We're going to figure this out. We're going to make this happen. And so I came back, took us 2 more years because we were moving our salon in 2010. And so we did all that. We talked about it. And she said, we got to go back. And I'm so grateful to Lauren, because if she hadn't pushed, I don't know that we would have made that second trip. And that second trip was the pivotal trip, because when we got here, everything had changed. You could see the economic environment growing. And all of a sudden I realized, what if instead of just small, we thought big? What if we put in a high-end Western style hair salon, and we target the wealthier Cambodians and the expats, the people that are living there, working for the embassy, the people that are working at the NGOs, and because there's a huge community of foreigners living here. What if we target them? And then the salon charges enough money that it can pay the scholarships for the students to go through our program. And so when I floated that by a couple people, they're like, that could work. And a couple people are still in resistance, saying no way. But there was still some that said that could work. But I knew if that was going to work, I would have to move here. And that was, I will never forget the moment we were driving around in a tuk-tuk, and I said to Lauren, I think I need to move here. And her eyes got big and she looked at me, and I started to tear up, and I said, do not tell anybody I just said that.
Including me. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just pretend that didn't come out of my mouth.
Just slow down a little bit. So, I mean, at that point, like, how do the work visas work? How do you, I'm just going to move.
I didn't know. I didn't even think about it. I was just, in the moment, I knew that this wouldn't grow to the vision that I had if one of us wasn't there. And Lauren was starting her family, and she had all kinds of things. So that it was just obvious I was the one to go. My kids are grown up. The salon is very steady. So I thought, okay, I'll start figuring this out. And we started the foundation. But what happened was I needed to make sure that I could create a community. I had to make sure that I would be able to get over here and not isolate myself. I wanted to make sure I could make friends. We're working in a predominantly faith-based community. I'm not a faith-based person. I'm a very spiritual person, but I don't own one particular religion. And so I didn't want to get over here and feel like I can't drop the F-bomb, or I can't go out and have beers or whatever. So I decided to come over and spend 6 weeks and really do my homework and meet people and make sure that this would work. So I told my leadership team only, and I said to them, this is your chance. I want you to run the show without me. I want you to make all the decisions and only check with me if you're, scared or whatever, but I think you guys can do it. I'm going to go over there and try this out. I spent 2 weeks here, and in the end of the 2 weeks, I knew there was no question I'm coming. And by the time I got to the end of the 6 weeks, I had a whole group of friends that I was having a beer with and saying goodbye and saying, don't worry, I'll be back, conversations. So I went back to my team, and while I was gone, mind you, they hired somebody, fired somebody, and spent $800 of my money to fix the vacuum system. So I'm like, all right, they're ready. They don't need me. So
that is so bold, because here you are, you just moved your salon's being successful. Now here you are going to a totally different country, impoverished country, that you're leaving your salon that you built back in the hands of people that you trust, which is great, but it's not you. And here you are in Cambodia, thinking about taking on a project, or, in your heart, you knew it was right, but taking on this project, and at home, it all could have fell apart, and then you would have had nothing.
Yeah.
That's to me is so amazing that you risk your life to save others.
Oh, and I never looked at it that way. But it's crazy to hear you say that. I think what I did was I had so much confidence in my team. I honestly believed in them, and they have been with me. Our turnover rate is super, super low. And so I just celebrated, one of my stylists has been in the salon. So she was there before I bought it. I think she just hit her 35-year mark.
Wow.
So the average tenure is probably 12 to 15 years in my salon.
Wow.
So
that speaks volumes of you.
well, thank you. I mean, but this is my HR background too. So the other thing is, if you get the right systems in place, you treat your employees well, they stay. So I just had so much confidence in them that that was not. I never thought of it the way you just put it. So that's crazy. So thank you. Yeah, I guess I did take a risk there, but it didn't feel risky to me.
So
It was. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so your leaders knew, and you knew it was the right. So when did you drop the bomb to everybody?
At my birthday party, I was throwing a big 50th birthday bash. And so I decided that's when I'm going to drop the bomb to everybody. So I was like, guess what? This isn't just my birthday party. Yay, it's a fundraiser. And there's some envelopes on the table. Feel free to fill them out. And so, yeah, we raised about $10,000 that day, and because it was a pretty big crowd. And that was August. I dropped, so my team knew. I told my team first, and then I told a few other people, and then I told everybody in the birthday. And then I moved. So that was 2012, August of 2012. And by July 2013, I had sold everything that I owned. Except for like maybe about 4 boxes of stuff, my salon and my children. Those and I technically don't own my children, but so yeah, I got rid of everything, and I'm a big Christmas fan. I love Christmas, and my Christmas trees are amazing, and so when all my friends saw my Christmas tree going up for sale, I knew I was serious. So that was kind of like, oh my God, he's really going to do this. Yes. So that I moved over here July 2013 was when I landed middle of the month into Cambodia.
So you went, what's that, 5 years? So there was a 5 year from your first time over there till you opened a thing. I mean, what incredible focus. And then what were you, during that 5 years, how were you supporting the Cambodian, whatever you were doing? How did you support your dream and stuff for 5 years?
Well, so here's the thing that I tell people. One of my friends that was helping me kind of on this end, like connect me with people, he said to me, I really appreciate how much time this is taking you. I appreciate that you're taking your time. And I was like, well, yeah, but it seems like too long. But when I do something, I want to do it right. And there are so many loose, things to figure out. So you're like visas, and how do I set up an NGO, and how do I set up a nonprofit? So in America, we call them nonprofits. Over in Cambodia and the rest of the world, they're called non-governmental organizations or NGOs. So I'm like, I don't, all of this. So that 5 years was for me to pace myself to make sure that this was going to be done properly. And I think that's also why Helen said to me, go do your homework. People just come over here, and it's not enough to have a good heart and think I'm just going to help people. It's like, no, have business sense, do it right. Or if you're going to open up some other program over here, make sure that you have expertise or others that have expertise in that area, because, just because your heart's good doesn't mean you're good at business. Just because your heart's good doesn't mean you're good at running an organization.
What's even more insane is that you're going over there and you're starting a salon and an academy from scratch, and you're not even a hairdresser, right? So it's not like you can even get your hands dirty in it. But, so you're bringing people in, but it's just so mind blowing that you're so determined and so focused that you made it work. You made it happen.
Well, not doing hair is probably one of my saving graces, because the problem that hairdressers get into when they open up a salon is things get bad and they get behind the chair and then they lose sight of what their business is. And so the thing I'm grateful for is that's not me. And ironically, the person that we hired to be our educator when we first opened ended up leaving just a few months after we opened. And so now I was like, oh my gosh, now what? So, but we had guest artists lined up. I'll tell you this, Salon Today ran an article about a year before I even got here. And I got an email and a call from a salon owner in Chicago. And he said, we read your article. We've got people, they want to come, so let me know when you're ready for volunteers. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even started this thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it was what my vision was. My vision was other people will want to get involved once they know. Stylists will want to help. Manufacturers will want to help. So I just knew that it wasn't going to be just me. I knew that other people would want to be involved.
That's incredible. I mean, I kind of want to, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I kind of want to get into those details. So how does a stylist volunteer their time, and then do they also have to volunteer to get over there and to put themselves up as well?
Yeah. What they do, most volunteers come we have a minimum of 1 month, because it's too much to learn and take in, and cultural. Your first week is jet lag and culture shock. So we work people through that, and then we get them into the program. So it's 1 month minimum. But many of our guest artists will come for 6 or 8 weeks. We've had a couple stay for 3 months. And in fact, that's how we have our lead educator right now. She was like maybe a month after our educator left, and she stayed for 2 months, November, December, and she loved it, and her life was changed. So, but what they do is a lot of times they'll do some crowdsourcing, they'll fundraise, save their money, and yeah, they fly over. Accommodations and things are pretty reasonable here, so it's not super expensive. So they'll come over, pay their way when they're over here, and they've got to raise enough money because most of them still have bills to pay for the time that they're not at work.
Right.
So, and then they come over and spend that time with us working with so they'll work directly with the students, but usually the educator will be doing the class, and then the guest artists will help. They'll support the class, they'll work one-on-one with the students, and then they do hair. So we also have them taking clients and working with our clientele, because all of our students are apprentices. So they all assist. So it's a 2.5-year program where, they're basically every day watching and seeing, and they know how a real salon is run. And it is like, I mean, the nice thing is for, $50,000, I was able to put together a pretty beautiful salon for Cambodia standards, and it rivals anything in the States. So they get to be a part of that.
Okay, a couple more questions. So, like, if Tony and I, we wanted to go, like, what would so let's say, what would the monthly cost be for us to come over? And I don't mean for our bills, but what to fly out there, to put us up for a month and stuff. Like, what's a 4-week budget that we should budget for to come out and work with you, or if anybody wanted to.
I think airfare, you're looking at maybe, it depends on the part of the country, but I would say $1,500 is an average.
That's right.
Right, but a lot of times people will get online and they'll find all these specials, so they'll be coming in on an $800 fare. So it is possible to get cheaper, and that's your biggest ticket item. Because once you get over here, for a month's worth of accommodations, we have several Airbnbs that people will stay at, and you can get a month Airbnb for $400.
Wow.
So, and every now and then people will want to stay in a hotel or a guest house or something like that, and everything's negotiable in Cambodia, so you can negotiate with the guest house and maybe get $20, $25 a night. for a decent guest house. So it just depends on what your comfort levels are. I had one friend stay in a beautiful hotel for like $40 a night. So, and then your food, you could plan on $10 to $12 a day.
Wow.
$10 is reasonable, but you know, especially if you're in an Airbnb and you can eat your breakfast at home. And but if you eat Western style food, you're going to pay some. You know, it's going to be higher. If you like to drink, you know, it's still really cheap. You can get a decent cocktail for $3.50 or $4, and you know, a glass of wine, you know, for $3. It's crazy when I come home and I order a glass of wine and it's $12. I'm like, what? That's a bottle.
So basically, I mean, you know, just by doing like raw math there. So, I mean, basically somebody could come out and spend a month with you and, you know, add $2,500 to the monthly budget.
Yeah.
And they can do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And for the return on that's
Yeah.
incredible.
And most guest artists will take a 3-day weekend or something and go up to Siem Reap to see Angkor Wat, because Angkor Wat is amazing. There's so many beautiful parts of this country, and the people are amazing. I mean, I've been there all over Southeast Asia, and I have yet to meet the hearts like I meet in Cambodia. I mean, it's just a generous, kind country for sure.
I think it's time for you to buy like a big old house out there and then just start renting out the rooms yourself for your guest artists.
Seriously, I thought about that. I mean, you know, because we just had graduation. So 2 of our students just graduated. Every January we hold graduation. Now, so we're up to 8 students. And we had like 7 guest artists return for the graduation. Wow. It's like this family. So we have a Facebook group that's now all guest artists and alumni. And so they get on and they share. So if somebody new is coming over, then they jump on and then they meet people and they're like, what do I do about this? And so and then they come back to Seattle every year for our Fashion Solstice fundraiser. So we do a big fashion show with the runway, and salons from all around the Pacific Northwest put people together. Last year we raised $170,000 in one evening. Yeah, and that's our major fundraiser. And this year we're downtown Seattle at Bell Harbor, so it's going to be a big event. So yeah, so once people get into the Justice and Soul family, they don't want to leave. They want to follow their students. They want to see what happens, and did they graduate, and blah blah blah. Where did they go? So
you're doing good for people, which is great. So talking about those kids, how do you find them?
All of our students come through NGOs, so the non-governmental organizations, so the nonprofits that we have over here. And so basically they get rescued from brothels, they get pulled off the street, or they get pulled out of orphanages because a lot of kids have come through systems of abuse, and so they're highly at risk. So most of them have some level of trauma in their background, and some of them have far less trauma than others, which we like the blended community, because their coping strategies are healthier than some trauma survivors. And so it's helpful for them to kind of learn from each other. And yeah, so they usually spend a year or so within another organization getting the emotional support that they need, getting kind of reacclimated to what life is going to be like. And so they come to us, they apply just like anybody else applies, and we interview them, and we look at their skills and ability, and we assess whether we think they can stay in a program for 2.5 years. And then we do. And honestly, out of, let's see, we have 9 students now and 8 graduates. So we have 19 total that have been through the program. Only 2 have left prematurely, but one of them's still doing hair. One of them went up to Siem Reap and got into a salon anyway. So only 1 student is not graduated or doing something.
Do they feel like your children after a while?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard because I do keep a professional, but yes, of course I'm super proud of them. And of course I brag about them. And it's like, yes, these are my family. And I got to watch them. I mean, some of them drastically change. And sometimes it's like almost overnight. It's like we work and work and work. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it clicked. It's happening. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
It's really.
What are the ages of your students? Like what's the youngest that you've had? And what's the oldest?
The youngest is 15 that came into our program, and the oldest was 24. And we this year we just launched our domestic program as well in Seattle, and so the age ranges are typically higher in Seattle and in the States because the laws regulate that. But we have what we've done in Seattle, so we can't just open up a Kate Corpy salon and academy in the States for multiple reasons. Number one is you can't open a school that easily. It's very complicated in the U.S. Not to mention that sometimes cosmetology schools are not always the nicest places. Girls don't, people don't always play nicely together. Let's put it that way. And if you're working with marginalized students anyway, people that have been in a very tough, traumatizing experience, it's not always healthy to put them into a cosmetology school. But on top of that, I don't want to create a school where everybody says, oh, those are the traffic girls. Oh, let's go to the traffic salon. Because what we believe is that our students are future focused. They have a right to let go of their past if they choose. And sadly, our society wants to keep them stuck in their past, whether it's through judgment, which happens over here, or whether it's through sympathy over in the States. And what our stylists want is not sympathy, and they don't want judgment. They want to be the powerful, amazing stylists that they can be. And they don't want to attach their past to their future. They want to let it go and move forward. So we want to create an apprenticeship programs into our partner salons, sympathetic salons that are already working with us to raise money. They're already working with us for the cause. So they're the ones that are applying to become apprentice salons. And then in the States, so over here, the salon is generating enough money to pay for the student. In the States, that's not possible because it's still, even in an apprenticeship program, it costs about the same as if I put them through a cosmetology program. It's going to be about $20,000 to $25,000 because we have to pay their wages. So we work with the salon. We partner with Adarashi apprenticeship program, and they do all the administrative pieces of it and really help work with the salon. So if your salon is interested in becoming a apprenticeship, and not all, I think 33 states allow apprenticeship programs, but we can work with you and set you up in this program and then work with the local nonprofits that are working with traffic survivors to find students and candidates that are ready to be placed.
What an amazing opportunity, man. I mean, Matthew, you just stole my heart a little bit, man. I got to be honest.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I said, what a beautiful human being.
My gosh. It's so funny because people are like, how'd you do that? And honestly, on a day-to-day basis, I don't think it just feels normal to me. I mean, my salon is amazing and they're running, it's been 5 years and they've increased revenue every year except for one. So if that part feels normal, coming here and going to work and walking my dog and, having a barbecue with the students, it's like, it feels normal to me. But I realize when I hear things like this, I guess it isn't normal. I guess not everybody sells everything and moves to Cambodia. So, all right, I am different.
So Matthew, I want just back up just a half step. You said that when your students come into the U.S., they don't want to be judged and they don't want the empathy or the sympathy. So what's the response to them in Cambodia? Is it a more forgiving kind of society and like?
Yeah, no. Actually, let me clarify. One is the students in the U.S. are our own kids. They're not foreigners. So that's where people get confused. They think that the trafficking problem in the U.S. is that we're bringing people in and selling them. But the reality is it's our own teenagers. I mean, we have a huge, huge problem in the U.S.
Okay,
and the
so our own teenagers, or you mean like U.S. born teenagers? Not
yes,
okay.
Yes, like your neighbor's daughter who ran away from home, or who was just online, and some guy said, "You would make a beautiful model. Come meet me." And pretty soon he's her boyfriend, and then he's her pimp, and she can't get out. And it starts as innocently as that at the age of 14 or 15. And then they're on, Backpage.com, and then they're being pimped out everywhere. And now they're 23 years old and they can't get out. They have no skill. They don't know how to get out. Their families, are not around. So I really I have to work hard at clarifying that, because people just think, oh, well, it doesn't bother me. It's not impacting me, but it is. It's happening on a regular basis in our own. I mean, there was a doctor and his wife that their daughter was lured into trafficking. So it can be, yeah. So that is a big challenge. And so as one of our things is to dispel that myth that these trafficked people in the U.S. are foreigners. No, they're U.S. citizens that are being trafficked. But here in Cambodia, it is different. If somebody is trafficked, they're tainted goods. And so that's why we don't talk about this. You'll see that our students' pictures are on Kate Corpy. Our students will post their pictures, but we never put a student's face or name to the foundation. So we really keep Justice and Soul separate from Kate Corpy, because here there are, traditionally, it's just, it's not as bad as some countries. I think India is much worse, but you'd be considered unclean. And it's like, no, there would be people that say, you're not touching my hair. You were a prostitute. You're not touching my hair. So there's still that stigma that goes with it.
How do you keep that anonymity in your salon, though? I mean, we heard about you. How is everybody not here?
Because we don't talk about it. Well, because in Cambodia, we just are a great hair salon. So I would say at least half of our clientele, even the expats, the foreigners that come in, do not know the background. So we talk about our students as they're underprivileged youth. So if somebody says, I want my daughter to come here, it's like, well, we're working with underprivileged youth, so they all come from NGOs. So it's easy to kind of just say, so underprivileged could be anything. And there is, so there is compassion among the Khmer for, kids that need a hand up. So that's different. And so, but yeah, so we just don't talk about it. It's not necessary. The reality is that's not our story over here. Our story is we create amazing stylists. They have a bright future. So
that's amazing, man. That is, like Corey said, I'm really touched, and I think it's so beautiful.
Wow. Well, thank you. I think it's a story that people, when they hear about it and they realize they can do something about it, it makes a difference. And every one of us, so not everybody can come to Cambodia. I tell people that, but there are different things you can do within your own community. Number one of the things we want to do is create an awareness building program. And we're in the process of our 10-year strategic plan so that we can figure out, we want to be able to go into salons and teach them how to look for the signs of someone who's being trafficked. Because it's just like doctors, they also have, they get training in what are signs of abuse and what are signs of being trafficked. And every salon, because pimps have to keep their girls pretty or keep their boys handsome. So they've got to do something. And so they take them into salons. And there are clear signs of when somebody's being controlled. So we want to be able to help educate salons on that. So salons can take a lead in that. They can do fundraisers, because we're not the only game in town. There are a lot of other organizations like us that are doing similar work. I don't think anybody has quite the model, because my model, I believe, is what we call a freedom business. And the reality is any business can do what we're doing. So anybody with a heart, so if anybody who's not a hairdresser happens to be listening and they sell shoes or make shoes or they're an IT person, all of that can be done in Cambodia or anywhere else, and we can be working with survivors. We just have to take a little extra time to create the parameters for it.
Bravo, Mr. Matthew Fairfax. That's pretty incredible. All right, I want to put you in the hot seat a little bit.
All right.
All right, here we go. It's not gonna be too bad, I promise. But
okay.
Like how, like nobody comes to you, and I don't. This is a terrible use of word, but nobody comes to you clean, right? And I would argue that nobody comes to any place, any job. So, but because they have such, I assume they have such horrific trauma stories. Like how do they mature past that? Especially only being at the oldest 24 years old. Even the full frontal lobe isn't even developed. And like what is your role in as far as like, I mean, let's be honest, how do you parent them through that? I think is the best way to.
Right. Yeah, and that's where my HR background really, really comes in handy. And it takes more patience. But the thing is, there are different levels of it. And so I know that if I'm not here in the salon, we would have to hire somebody who's probably an HR social worker, basically. So you hire somebody with a background that's worked with trauma survivors. But to be honest, the most important thing is it takes patience, and the nature of the work that I do attracts wounded warriors anyway. So, and by that, we're all wounded in some way or another, but usually somebody that has their own scars wants to get involved in making sure other people don't get scars. And so we spend time working with our employees as well as our students in how to cope, how to stress, it's different for somebody who's lived in the US coming over here. So I spend a good amount of my time coaching my leaders and my employees so that they can then coach the students. But there are times that I have to jump in. An example, early on in the game, I was working with a couple of the students and they were practicing a blowout. And they were not necessarily, we had a rule, when you're practicing blowout, if you're the student, but you're pretending you're a client, you have to be a good client, really participate as a client. If you're the stylist, treat them like a real stylist as the client. And so I came by and a couple of them were not really doing it. And I could tell there was some issues going on. I'm like, you guys, I mean it. You need to make sure that you're acting like a professional stylist when you're doing this, and you be a good client. And that's all. I mean, honestly, that was the extent of it. And the blow dry finished. The student grabbed his stuff and he was ready to leave in tears. And I'm like, whoa, what happened here? So I'm like, come on, come into the office, just come in here. And he sat down. And for about 10 minutes, while he just cried. And I just let him cry because there was nothing in that moment that, and once he got down, I said, what is going on? I get a little emotional actually now thinking about it. I said, what's going on? And what I had done is inadvertently, I triggered something for him because he said, whenever my father yelled at me, I knew that a hit was going to follow. And he was waiting for me to hit him. And so that it triggered the pain. All that pain came rushing back because somebody who he respected, whether I like it or not, I'm a father figure to my students. And it triggered for him. And took about 40 minutes to work through that. And it took another year for him to really believe that there's no way I would ever hurt him. There's no way that I would cause some of the same pain that he's been through. So I think one of the biggest things is this is why our program's 2 years, 2.5 years, because you can't develop that kind of trust and self-esteem and confidence in 6 months. It doesn't happen. They have so much baggage. You have to have time and patience. I had organization that wanted to look at maybe doing grants for us, and they said, well, we like the idea, but it's too long. Can you shorten that? Can you do it in 6 months or a year and get more people through? And I said, listen, you can't rush self-esteem. That doesn't happen in 6 months. You can't build that kind of confidence where somebody can have a consult with somebody from a different country and feel confident that they understand and cut their hair. So yeah. So it takes a lot of patience. I think that is the biggest thing.
Does he still work with you?
He's graduated and he's doing an amazing job in another salon on his own. Yeah, he was my one of my first graduates. I see him. I still see him. He comes in. I'm actually coaching him. He wants to open his own salon, and I said, "You're not ready. You need to save up some money, and you need to make more mistakes. So do that on somebody else's clients first, and then we'll open your salon."
Great advice. So have any of your graduates stayed in your school?
Yes, we have 3 of our graduates that graduated last year that are part of our new talent team, and the two that just graduated both just want to stay on. But interestingly enough, so Cambodia's structure is a lot different, and everybody works a minimum of 6 days, but we only work 5. And one of my graduates has been working with his NGO organization that kind of pulled him out, and he wants to continue helping them. And they've opened up kind of more of like an intro to cosmetology, and he's been helping them. So he's going to work 2 days with them and 4 days with us, and he wants to help others experience some of the freedom that he got. So it's a pay it forward, beautiful. It's exactly what we want. Perfect. So,
that's just incredible. I mean, so Matthew, tell us, like, how do people find you? How can they, what do you need? Do you need money? Do you need people? Kind of tell us, walk us through how people can get in touch with you, and we'll jump on this amazing industry that we have and see who can rush out and help you.
So we need, yes, all of the above. Number one, our website, justiceandsoul.org, has all the information on first fashion solstice. So we're getting ready. March 23rd is our big fashion fundraiser in Seattle. So anybody in the Northwest, come get involved. There's a couple slots open for salons still, but we need volunteers for the day of. We need donations so that we could put them in the silent auction. We'd love to get, guest artists signed up to come over here. We try and keep 6 to 8 months of guest artists on the books, mapped out. So there's an online application under the Get Involved tab on our website. Everybody has to apply. They go through, we have to be pretty serious about our interview process to make sure that their skill strength's there. They have to have 3 years of experience behind the chair. But yeah, we'd love to get guest artists. So you can go online and find out about that. Do fundraisers in your own community. Just, people can do a cut-a-thon for the day. People can, actually I have somebody in San Diego, so shout out to Southern California. My friend, one of our guest artists, Nika, is working on putting together a fashion solstice fundraiser in Southern California, 2020. So if anybody's down there and thinks that they're event planning or they love anything like that, great. Let's get involved with that. And if your state has an apprenticeship program and you're interested in becoming a host salon, reach out to us on the website. There's email addresses for both Sarah and myself. Sarah is our executive director in Seattle. And because what we want to do is just create a list of what states, who's interested, and then once we get this, this is our first year in the Northwest, but then we want to be able to expand that to other states. So there's multiple ways that people can get involved. But yeah, fundraising is big for us right now because it's expensive to run the program in the States.
Oh, there you go. So whoever's listening, please, get involved one way or another.
Yeah.
Give time, give money, give something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Matthew Fairfax.
We truly, truly appreciate you, brother.
100%. It's
well, thank you guys. This was worth getting up at the crack of dawn. I mean, if I could start my day every day like this would be awesome. No, seriously, thank you though for giving us a voice and for spreading the message, because it makes a difference, and I can't do it alone. That is for sure.
Well, I think what you guys are doing, what your organization doing is incredible, and I'm very honored that we're able to share your story and to share your organization with our industry. I know there's others that have shared your story as well, but I'm just glad that that we're able to do that for you as well. So just amazing, Mr. Matthew Fairfax. Thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off. Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review. But if you don't like it, forget about it. Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find, you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.